For Andrew Johns, today's trip really is one of a lifetime. Leaving for England, Johns will play a short stint for Warrington in the Super League. It's the last frontier for arguably league's greatest ever.
I got the same feeling I did when I went into Origin 2 this year, that it's like I've got to prove myself all over again to these new players and the new coach.
Nursing bumps and bruises he can handle. It's playtime with his son Samuel he'll really miss. Leaving him behind, even if only for 6 weeks, will be harder than any English winter.
Yeah, it's going to be tough leaving him, but I figure it's better going away for 6 weeks than it is going away for 11 months. I'll ring him every day, and I've got the email of his school teacher, so I'll keep him posted with what's going on in photos. But yeah, I'm going to miss him.
The league community will miss Johns tomorrow night. Incredibly, he's considered a strong chance to win a 4th Dally M Award as the game's best, despite suffering a broken jaw and with his team finishing last this season.
I suppose when you're young, you just take it for granted. But after I've been through the last couple of years, it'd mean a lot to me that come back and win it.
Or if you're Samuel, he'll be happy simply when Dad's back for good. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It's supposed to be spring, but winter just won't let go. The temperature didn't rise above 13 degrees across the Hunter yesterday, the coldest September day since 1970. And as the rain came down, even Ronald was feeling the chills, not to mention these cycling dads raising money for Ronald McDonald House. The boys from South Cardiff celebrated their NBN Soccer League goal in muddy style. And down at the beachside cafe strip, a damp Father's Day continued into a murky Monday, with empty chairs at empty tables despite the lure of a warming cuppa.
We were expecting a bright and sunny and busy Father's Day, and it didn't eventuate like that. We still had some good numbers down here, but they soon disappeared.
At Cahaiba, the wet weather has frustrated Lake Macquarie Council's efforts to install new drainage pipes under Cahaiba Road at Little Flaggy Creek. A huge crack opened up in the road today, prompting detours around the worksite for city-bound motorists.
Just 2 days after his 8th birthday, Josh Nyland was told he had cancer.
When I heard that they said, "You've got cancer," I immediately thought, I'm going to die, that sort of thing, because that's what an 8-year-old thinks, really.
Another 8 years on, and Josh is not only alive, but kicking. An apprentice chef at Newcastle's acclaimed brewery restaurant, the realisation of a long-held dream. He slices and dices with the precision of a seasoned professional, less than a year into his apprenticeship.
Passion, really. I enjoy doing it and do it at home.
And perhaps ironically, he credits his battle with cancer for steering him down this path.
After I got sick, I had to sort of concentrate on the nutrition side of things after losing so much weight and then building myself back up again and putting on too much weight and then sort of thinking about what I was eating, which helped me cook at home.
Josh suffered from a Wilms tumour, a childhood cancer which develops in the kidney. When he was featured in the documentary A Day at a Time, he was in the middle of chemotherapy. There were operations, 18 months of chemotherapy in the end, and complications. But the toughest thing, he says, was the time away from his loved ones. He says it taught him a valuable lesson about life.
Draw strength out of your family, because it certainly brought my family close together, and realise how much I miss my dad and my sister, because my mum was the only one that could be with me.
For a young man of just 16, Josh shows great maturity. It's reflected in his work, a career that's certainly sizzling. Already he's come to the attention of some of Sydney's top chefs, a future there beckoning.
Turning 17 in October and being in a restaurant like I am now is just amazing. To think that people in Sydney recognise me as being a talent in the industry, it's weird. It's good.
Tomorrow night, the baby of the group grows up. Sarah Turner's transformation from a toddler to a young lady.
What a way to cool off the Jets. Much like the freezing bath, celebrations for their first win also on ice after drawing with the Mariners. After netting both his and the club's first A-League goal of the season, Ante Milicic didn't finish the game with a hamstring problem, but he doesn't want to miss the coming home match against glamour side Sydney FC.
You know, everyone's talking about Sydney, but it's not just that. We owe our home fans something after the disappointing night that we gave them, you know, a week ago. So it doesn't really matter who the opposition is. We need 3 points.
Broadmeadow are still celebrating successive NBN Soccer League titles that didn't see a goal until Mitch Henry's in extra time. It finished 2-1, but the celebrations are still going. The Newcastle North Stars are having a party of their own, which also includes a premiership. After winning their semi-final on Saturday against Sydney, the North Stars took on Adelaide last night for the National Ice Hockey League's Goodall Cup. Holding a 2-0 lead, it was defence that really won it for the home side. When Don Nichols hit home a long-range strike, it sealed the club's 3-1 win and second title in 4 years. Skipper Ray Sheffield needing little help to hold up the cup as everyone wanted a piece of the silverware.
The start to our year was the most difficult and traumatic that we've ever been through, and I guess for the guys to still hang in and train hard and play well in the last 8 or 10 weeks, I think says a lot about the spirit in the team, and that if we get everyone on the field, we're certainly going to be thereabouts next year.
We could have easily thrown in the towel after 13 losses in a row, but we didn't, and we hung in there, and we've done ourselves and the town proud.
It's definitely a tough time, and I think, as soon as we won that first game, you could just see the relief on everyone's face, and we started enjoying our footy again.
A few class players coming, Luke DeVico, Brian Carney, and the players, the young players now, Brad Tye, Milton, these players, Trent Sorkel. How good a players are they going to be next year? If we get everything right and get the structure right in the place, I can't see anyone holding us back.
It's come from a point where we didn't think we'd win a game all year to the turnaround where we've won 7 in a row nearly, and as a club it's been tremendous, and the turnaround is something we really will look back on, and hopefully we'll, after next year we'll look back and say that's the making of a premiership.
Jeannie Walls and Britt Osborne both have major events coming up next month. The Maritime and Matara festivals are going ahead, but not with the kind of financial support they'd like.
10 years ago we would have had 20 to 30 sponsors. This year we have 5.
And neither festival has been able to secure a naming rights sponsor.
The basic answer has been, well, what's in it for us? How much money will we earn out of the festival?
Both events have long histories in Newcastle and organisers say proven pulling power, but they claim business support has gone cold.
It's either a boardroom direction nationally, it's the CEO and his ego and where he decides to spend the money. There's not enough ROI, sponsors will say, or there seems to be a lack of community spirit in the corporate boardrooms at the moment.
The women have called on the business chamber to take up the issue.
It's nearly coming to crisis point. You know, where are we going to go? Is there still going to be events held in this city?
There will be, for now at least, largely thanks to volunteer and council help. The Maritime and Matara festivals will actually run larger programs this year. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
This could be described as the pinnacle of chic. Latex House, slated to become the Pinnacle Apartments, used as the canvas for an audacious environmental message about Newcastle's coal exports. Just how the intrepid artisan or artisans scaled the building and then carried out the work has amazed both the building's manager and environmentalists.
I think it's someone who's very athletic, that's for sure. I don't know how they did it, but it certainly highlighted the message.
Even though Greenpeace brought its Quit Coal campaign to Newcastle Harbour last month to begin the campaign for a shift from coal-fired electricity to green power, the organisation today denied responsibility for the graffiti. Rising Tide, the Newcastle residents group opposed to human-induced climate change, also said it wasn't involved. But environmentalists claim there is a clear message for government.
I guess what it highlights really is that, the state government really needs to take the lead and organise, I guess, what is our strategy in the next 20 years to wean ourselves off coal.
Despite the latest intrusion, there won't be any further changes to security arrangements at Latex House. Gary Blair, NBN News.
This is Newcastle like you've never seen it before. The council's latest high-res imagery allows you to zoom in not only on your suburb, but your street, your house, even your car. The photos were taken from an aircraft on a sunny Sunday morning last April and form part of the Regional Museum's latest exhibition tracing the history of mapping. Abel Tasman's map from 1644 shows about half of Australia. Matthew Flinders had a better picture in 1798. And by 1851, there was a fairly accurate view of Nobby's headland and the harbour. But the cartographers of those days would never have imagined you could zoom in so close. You could see the surfers paddling for a wave or the Stockton ferry about to dock.
We go from these paper little blobs of Australia going right down in the digital stuff. You can see your car, you can see your bins, did you mow the lawn that day, and looking at mapping in the future.
A replica of Corelli's celestial globe from the 17th century sits beside Google Earth, where you can zoom into any city on the planet. Our view of the Earth has certainly changed over the past few centuries. The exhibition opens on Friday.
It's been a long time since Singleton had tasted premiership success in Group 21, but playing Denman at home in the decider was always going to be a tough ask. The Greyhounds, though, quick out of the box. A try to fullback Nick Kesey, the perfect start. Working their way back into the game, Todd Wallace knew who to follow, and while the back rower had some work to do, he crossed to make it 6 apiece. Singleton was still making an impression, but it was on the scoreboard that it mattered, and Wallace was making it a one-man mission for Denman. All the momentum was now with the home side, and when Mark Payne dived over in the corner, Denman went to the break up by 10. It didn't stop the flow of tries. Robert Lonergan's power play started with a hit and spin before he took a host of Greyhounds over the line with him, and didn't he enjoy it? It was inspirational stuff at both ends, as Singleton tried everything to find a way over. Heartbreak for the visitors, though, at the other end, as Mark Brown's persistence paid off with a try that sealed Singleton's fate. 2 late tries, little consolation for the visitors, as Denman took the title, and weren't they happy little devils? The 28 14-point win sure to be celebrated for a while yet.
When they come to Newcastle, they want to rest and feed up. This is their holiday resort, their summer retreat.
Sarah Turner has always been one determined little girl. She was just 3 years old when diagnosed with cancer. It was the beginning of a long fight for life. You'd hardly recognise that sick little girl now, a strong, healthy 12-year-old, still with that signature optimism.
A couple of months ago I was saying to Mum it's like I didn't even have cancer because I've just gotten so far and everything.
She certainly has. Sarah had a Wilms tumour. She lost a kidney and endured a relapse and years of treatment. Surprisingly, for one so young, she says she has plenty of memories, mostly good.
Yeah, I've got a lot, just all the people that I've met over the years and everything. Yeah, just a lot of memories.
The close-knit Turner family shared it all, the good times and the bad.
It was a difficult time for everyone, where you could only sit back basically and watch what Sarah had to go through. And
they also saw other families fighting similar battles, some who tragically lost their children.
I feel like, we've seen the other side, we've seen their pain, but also like they share our joy that Sarah's fine.
And living life to the full with dancing, sport, even matching it with big brother Cameron. She has big plans for the future.
Well, I want to be a hairdresser when I'm older and just get into that career and everything and hopefully be a good hairdresser.
she's very determined, bordering on sort of stubborn, but no, she's very determined and strong-willed, and I think what she has gone through, that determination and that strong will certainly helped her immensely.
Sarah still has to have yearly checkups, but the prognosis is good. She says she wants to give others hope that there is life beyond cancer.
Just believe in yourself and that you can do this and get through it.
Tomorrow night we catch up with the lovable larrikin of the group, Jamie Perkins, at 18.
You don't have to look hard to discover the Maitland-Newcastle Diocese stance on children in its care. However, Bishop Michael Malone asked parishioners how that care and protection could be improved.
So it was incumbent upon us to establish a good unit that was going to suit the particular needs of this diocese. And so we built on expertise from the schools office and from centre care in helping to establish that.
The Child Protection and Professional Conduct Unit is responsible for ensuring activities run by staff and volunteers in the church and across the Catholic education system meet legislative requirements for child protection. One of the first tasks for Unit Manager Helen Keevers will be education and prevention measures.
I guess they're the core work we'll be undertaking in keeping children safe today. Another major aspect of our work will be working on the healing side of this area of work.
The unit will also provide victims of past abuse within the church with a new point of contact to raise their situation.
It's a unit that's equipped not only to handle the professional people, as in teachers and priests and so on, but also people who are affected in any way by abusive situations, so that we're able to then meet their particular needs.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
When the Stewart Avenue rail crossing opened in July 2000, Newcastle MP Bryce Gaudry labelled it a $5 million traffic solution. But the crossing has had quite the opposite effect, now a frustrating situation for the thousands who use the arterial road.
Oh, I have to go across there at least twice a day, but many times 4 and 5 times a day, and you are caught there without doubt.
And this morning, yet another problem when a truck clipped and damaged one of the boom gates, holding up traffic and stopping trains altogether.
It's old infrastructure, and really we've recognised now with the Stewart Avenue crossing, with the Swansea Bridge crossing, and also at Adamstown, that this is infrastructure that needs to be replaced.
While Mr Gaudry was unavailable for comment today, Mr Thornton says a tunnel is the answer to all three problems.
An overhead bridge would add a lot of more infrastructure and probably be a bit of an eyesore on the city, whereas the tunnelling technology seems to be coming down in price, and we have the expertise here in the region.
Meanwhile, the Swansea Chamber of Commerce met last night to discuss its ongoing concerns about the Swansea Bridge. Members discussed alternatives including a tunnel and have requested full costings of the RTA's maintenance work. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. The saying goes, someone's trash is another's treasure. Well, this story is no exception. In fact, these historically significant records dating back to 1873 were rescued out of a garbage bin by some local historians. They were donated to the University of Newcastle, the collection now a precious addition to the library's archives.
Well, I think it just forms a fantastic historical resource, not just for people interested in Carrington's history, but also, on an academic level, with people studying, the history of education in the local area.
But it's the detail of the class rolls and the rather shocking punishment books which make these items so valuable, giving some insight into life at the school.
Well, they're getting punished for a whole variety of reasons, anything from creating disorder and disobedience to talking, laughing.
Even sulking is on the punishment list, for which one boy received 6 cuts of the cane. And then there's the serial offenders who appear on every page, often more than once.
Yes, a young chap called Willie Jones seemed to get caned either every day or every second day.
So if the current pupils of Carrington Public feel hard done by at school, they can consider themselves lucky they weren't enrolled 100 years ago. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
A day after they thought their season was over, came welcome news of their selection, and considering the seasons they've had, it's a real achievement. Forced to miss the first 10 weeks due to both suspension and injury, Clint Newton won a spot thanks to a great back half to the year.
Going into this season, I didn't think I'd be picked in any rep teams. It was just the fact that I wanted to play well for the club and repay a bit of faith that they showed me during the suspension.
Kurt missed half the year as well through injury, but his selection proves rep selectors haven't forgotten about him either. He's now hearing all about his opposition from teammates.
The boys have give us some good feedback yesterday. Apparently they're really soft up there. So they said they're rock hard up there.
Meanwhile, several Hunter Valley Touch players did their chances of making the State of Origin series little harm at the City versus Country event in Newcastle. Already boasting several state representatives, the over 30s women's touch side was too strong for City in the 3-game series, winning every match, with the likes of Nicole Mitchell leading the way. Named Player of the Tournament, selectors would have taken note, while several of her teammates also shone. Hovering in the top 20 on the nationwide tour all year, Green threatened to drop out before his top 3 finish at the Alberta tournament. Back in 11th place now on the money list, if he can remain in the top 20, he'll earn playing status for the USPGA's main tour next year. Green cut his teeth on the Canadian tour, and that's where fellow Hunter product Ryan Smith flew out for today. The former national trainee champion will contest tour school with the aim to earn his playing card. It's England that Aaron Townsend leaves for next week, with his eyes on qualifying for the European Tour. After just missing out last year, the former State Rookie of the Year will be buoyed by a recent 2-shot win on the Sunshine Tour in Queensland. Meanwhile, Nelson Bay's Cherie Burns has won a start at the European season-ending Catalonia Ladies Masters in Spain at the end of the month.
And it gives us a chance to approach government, to put our voice forward to change conditions for Australian families.
This is the flagship of Australian television broadcast via satellite to our northern neighbours. For the past 3 years, ABC Asia Pacific has delivered a diverse range of programs from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and our commercial networks into the area from Papua New Guinea to Japan and China. Today, that delivery footprint got much bigger, with India's Z Network and Dish TV adding ABC Asia Pacific to their English entertainment programs. And Newcastle featured in the arrival of the new service.
SP Telemedia is thrilled to partner with the ABC Asia Pacific in the launch of this dedicated television channel into India as part of the overall ABC Asia Pacific media operations.
The program is broadcast from the NBN studios in Newcastle under a commercial agreement between the ABC and NBN's owner, SP Telemedia. Expanding ABC Asia Pacific service into India will now also see the programming available to viewers as far away as Afghanistan and parts of Iran. Newcastle will be the origin of the signal for more years to come.
SP Telemedia was recently confirmed by the ABC Asia Pacific as a continued service provider for a further 6 years, and we're thrilled with that appointment.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Been wondering what these symbols spray painted across the Newcastle foreshore and King Edward Park are all about? Well, WD stands for the World Duathlon Championships, which will be held on the 24th and 25th of September. The event will attract the world's top professional duathletes, including the Australian team, which qualified in Newcastle in April.
We're expecting over 1,500 athletes from 35 nations, so it's really exciting.
Event organisers have a massive logistical task ahead of them, collecting entries and attempting to attract hundreds of volunteer marshals to guard the roadblocks for the event.
We definitely need more volunteers. The more we've got, the safer it is, the more fun it is for everyone.
For more information, go to worldduathlon2005.com. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's Shakespeare, but not as you've ever imagined it. With his contemporary spin on Measure for Measure, John Bell is back and as controversial as ever.
I think people rather expect Shakespeare to be something more foreign or old-fashioned.
Bell has made his name from challenging conservative notions. He says this play is perfect for our modern world.
That opening number represents the kind of moral decline of the city of Vienna and the sort of state that it's in. It's not far removed from what you'd see in most cities around Australia, I think.
For the Maitland Race director, the civic theatre season is also something of a homecoming.
When I was growing up and my grandparents lived in Wickham, I used to come here at least once a week to the movies, and it was my favourite place in the world.
And it remains firmly on his touring agenda. Measure for Measure shows Friday and Saturday.
Holding down the position of general manager of a large organisation may sound daunting enough. Well, add 7 classes a week of aerobics instructing and studying masters in commercial law, and then you'll get some idea of life for Samantha Martin. So how does she find time to fit it all in?
That's a very good question. It's important to have some work-life balance and do some exercise and spend a little bit of time out. It's not easy, but that balance is important.
Tonight she'll be presented with one of the university's top honours, the Newton John Award, which goes to a graduate who has made a substantial contribution towards enhancing the quality of life in the community, an enormous honour for the proud Novocastrian.
It is, particularly in the community that you choose to live in, the Hunter by your university. It's a real privilege and a pleasure.
There's nothing to smile about at the fuel pump these days. With prices hovering around $1.39 for a litre of unleaded, it's enough to make motorists plain mad.
I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. It cost me a lot more than it does back up in Queensland. I've just been down here for about 4 weeks now, and I'm actually going to move back to Queensland because it's too expensive for me.
The drive would be a real pain in the hip pocket. Industry experts say we haven't yet seen the worst. The once unthinkable price of $1.50 a litre, now likely.
They're certainly gone up a lot, haven't they? Yeah, but I suppose that's what you've got to pay extra, with all these troubles in the world.
Not surprisingly, motorists are starting to look for alternatives. Newcastle City Council is setting the example with its green travel program, among other things encouraging staff to carpool. It estimates around 10% of its 1,000-strong workforce has taken up the idea.
It's about getting people to change their perceptions of how they can travel to work, get out of patterns that they've had in the past and think, well, maybe it's slightly less convenient, but I can still manage.
Council also provides a lock-up for those who use pedal power. The room may soon become a little more crowded. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
So we'd like people to keep an eye out from a distance, I guess you could say, and report anything untoward that might be happening to council or national parks.
A cruise on the rich aquatic environment of Port Stephens was the setting for green groups to reveal their plan. The Nature Conservation Council, National Parks Association and Newcastle branch of the Wilderness Society have formed the Saltwater Environment Alliance to campaign for protection of the marine environment.
We have national, state and local environment groups saying enough's enough, we need to protect our marine environment.
Protection which requires the state government to substantially increase the number of marine parks and marine sanctuaries along the state's coastline.
And we need to put in place a minimum of 20% of areas off the coast for no-take zones. So basically no fishing in at least 20% of waters.
As fishers from Newcastle to Coffs Harbour continue to fathom the impact on them of the proposed Manning Shelf bioregion Marine Park, they've been assured by green groups they won't be locked out of the reserve system.
So people will still be able to fish, people will still be able to, dive and snorkel, but we want about 20% at least reserved out of the fishing area.
The job of winning public support for the plan is now in the hands of the Wilderness Society.
Our role is to bring to the community the benefits of marine sanctuaries, and that we want fish biodiversity to be there for future generations.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Jamie Perkins has always loved a laugh, even in the most stressful of times. When we met him as a 10-year-old, Jamie was already waging his second battle with cancer, having relapsed from his initial diagnosis at the tender age of 2. Now 18, Jamie says behind the smiles and jokes, it was a painful time.
I try not to think about it, but there are some memories that just stick with you, even though you don't want to necessarily remember them. I want to get rid of it. Turn the page.
Jamie had the most common form of childhood cancer, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. After another relapse and a bone marrow transplant, he finally emerged, cancer-free, but not entirely unscathed.
We're still sort of mopping up, the after effects now, because he's bilaterally deaf and, he has hearing aids and his growth has been stunted, things like that. Not that I'm complaining, because it doesn't really matter, he's well, he's well.
He has a passion for the piano and for computers, leading him down a possible career path.
To fix them, which I want to learn how, because my computer tends to play up a lot with me on it.
Jamie's studying information technology at TAFE, where his mischievous streak must surely keep classmates entertained.
The teachers are really good. And they might give me some extra marks if I mention them.
Life is full of fun. And hope for others going through the same thing.
There is light at the end of the tunnel. And they, after watching this, this program, they'll be able to see, well, look, they made it. There is light there.
Tomorrow night we'll meet another of our cancer survivors facing another big test, the HSC.
There's plenty of work out there, lack of tradesmen, plenty of work and not enough people to do it. It's a harsh reality already confronting Australian industry, and it's only going to become steadily worse by 2010, with as many as 170,000 skilled employees leaving the Australian workforce, most of them through retirement. There are around 20,000 vacancies in the traditional trades right now, and they're across the board, including machinists, boilermakers, electricians, engineers, fitters and turners. The list goes on. 130,000 people are currently being trained in manufacturing in Australia, and while there's been a 13% increase in the number of new apprentices in the past year, industry experts warn it won't be enough to replace retirees or to keep up with population growth.
We are at really quite a critical point in terms of industry going forward.
Only 7 out of 10 apprentices finish their training, most of the dropouts occurring in the first year, costing employees around $10,000. The impacts of the trade shortage are being felt in the Hunter Valley town of Muswellbrook, which is crying out for workers.
The coal industry being in such demand, particularly in Asia for the export market at the moment, it's doubled the need for skilled people in those areas to be here.
There are 166 jobs waiting to be snapped up in the town, mainly in the areas of metal fabrication and welding, maintenance fitting and electrical work. Businesses are going to great lengths to retain employees, offering attractive financial packages, but it's finding them in the first place that's proving difficult.
We give them 1 month's accommodation, the company pays for it, we give them the opportunity to see whether they actually want to be here.
Tomorrow night, we find out why the situation has become so bad in Australia.
Admittedly, the Australian team that left for France today isn't the strongest team they could have sent. It leaves Danny Ham realistic about his chances, but he hopes the honour of racing for his country can inspire great things.
This is the first time I've ever done it, and it'll probably be my last time I'll ever get a chance to, so I'm just going to take advantage of it and really enjoy it.
In all, 36 nations will be represented, with the world's best Ricky Carmichael leading the US team.
He's gone a whole year this year undefeated in the motocross series, and well, close to anyway, and he's going to be fast. Just to ride against him is going to be quite an experience.
And the Hunters' next generation of motocross stars performed well at the weekend at the National Junior Dirt Track titles at Taree. Of the 10 categories, 5 were won by Hunter riders, including Alex Davies, who's now a third-generation Australian champ. From bikes to baseball, well, T-ball to be exact, and after 3 days of competition, it came down to a final between Newcastle and the Central Coast for the New South Wales country title in the under-10s. In a close finish, the Coasties won 25-23. What about the arm on Newcastle under-12s pitcher Mindy Latimer? Her side was in the decider against Illawarra, but again, it was the visitors who did well, winning a thriller 3-2.
If it's a case of secret men's business regarding fatherhood, Homestart National wants to lift the lid.
I don't really know what the big reluctance is. I think men have a fear.
Father of 3, Gary Radcliffe's glad he found someone who's happy to pass on some hard-earned knowledge. 69-year-old John Imber's weekly visits have been a lifeline.
It gives me someone to talk to besides my wife and the kids. Talking some man things and then not kid things.
Juggling work and sleep deprivation along with raising 3 toddlers, families like the Radcliffes say any support is appreciated.
You don't have to do anything very much, but you do get a lot out of it by just being there with them along the way through.
The Right from the Start program wants to help others struggling families on the waiting list by linking them with volunteers who can make a difference.
And to be there as a mentor and a guide for these young men and new dads that are really having a few problems just sorting out what fathering is all about.
Any experienced dads with some spare time can call Homestart National or log on to their website.
It is really rewarding. And when you see this little bloke, you can understand why.
It is really terrible for us because this guy was so happy to live and he was so passionate with his job.
Just what happened on Rodney Road, Mount Vincent on the night of December 20, 1997 is the question Coroner John Abernathy wants answered. Timothy Chapman was waiting to meet his sister and her boyfriend to take them to a campsite where he was staying with two mates. Tragically, the 14-year-old died in a hit-run crash. However, the vehicle involved still hasn't been found. Today's resumption of the second inquest heard some of the forensic evidence available to the coroner. Dr Derek Pocock, the forensic pathologist who conducted Timothy's post-mortem, told the court the teenager's injuries appeared to show he was either lying on the road or sitting at the time he was hit by the vehicle. But a severe laceration to Timothy Chapman's left forearm indicates he had raised his arm to defend himself. Dr Pocock added a head injury that Timothy suffered when he was struck probably killed him within 30 seconds. Dr Pocock told Coroner Abernathy that he doesn't believe any more than one vehicle was involved in the incident. He later added that if his theory is correct, the driver of that vehicle may not have realised the seriousness of what happened on that night. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Adam Bates basked in his first taste of sunshine today after a week confined to a hospital bed. With girlfriend Carmen by his side, the 25-year-old Rural Lands Protection Board ranger from Singleton is surprisingly upbeat, despite the accident of last Monday when a fencing job using an auger went terribly wrong.
Jumped out and grabbed me on the leg and had a mate with me. He was quick-witted enough to jump up and turn the tractor off and stop the auger, you know. And
it happened on a remote property near Singleton. The Westpac chopper called in to fly him to specialist help in Newcastle.
You never think it's going to happen to you, to need to use the chopper, but everyone should support it. It's a great service that we've got.
Adam and Carmen's families have both been big supporters. Ironically, just days before the accident, they were involved in fundraising $40,000 for the service.
You know, a lot of people think of it as cheap insurance and they're happy to pay but never to see the service. But when something like this happens, it just makes you so good that we can be here to assist.
Adam, meantime, is trying to stay positive about the future.
Spirits have been pretty good. I mean, a bit of a shock to the system last Monday, but I've got that many friends and family that are, you know, that are willing to help.
Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
Captured on tape by a neighbour, the flames quickly enveloped the Koyong Place house. Father of two, Sean Needham, can be seen training a garden hose on the fire, his efforts fruitless. There was little neighbours could do but watch in horror.
We were just surprised at how quick the whole thing went. You know, first off there was just some flames coming from under the house. Next minute the flames had just, the whole underneath has gone up and just went from there.
Initially, the flames had trapped Mr Needham's 13-year-old son under the house, but he managed to free the boy before firefighters went to work with several large hoses. As they attacked the flames, thick smoke blanketed neighbouring homes.
To think there was people there and they've lost most of their possessions, it's quite tragic actually. No one deserves that.
Today, a burnt-out shell was all that remained of the Department of Housing dwelling, number 13. Unlucky for some, but no doubt this family will be counting its blessings. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Two wins in a row, and those winning Grens couldn't even be wiped off with a beach run. Labano Haliti was still enjoying his day in the sun. Starting up front, he did just what was asked. tapping in to get the ball rolling.
Just going in front of my own crowd and yeah, it was good, special feeling.
Matt Thompson soon found out all about it, but you could only wonder what was going through the mind of the Kiwi keeper as it became 2-0. Plenty of courage from the smallest man on the field earned Stu Mishalik the right result, squeezing through both keeper and defender for the third.
I don't normally score goals, so I was a little bit shocked, and then it sunk in straight away, so I just took off towards the crowd.
Given the way he enjoyed it, the young Socceroo might just make a habit of it. The Kiwis made 3 changes at half-time, but it made little difference. Nick Carl on the spot to seal a 4-0 win and a share of second place on the ladder. An away trip to Melbourne is next on the list, but after he was a late withdrawal yesterday with a muscle strain, it'll be touch and go for Ante Milicic to make the trip. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Judging by today's turnout at the Hunter Valley Research Foundation's Luncheon on Ageing, it's a hot topic. Often portrayed negatively, economic commentator Dr. Don Stammer says an ageing population should be seen as a good thing.
Individuals are living 20, 30 years longer than they would otherwise have done so, and most are living very healthy lives in their later years, and that's a great achievement.
But with that comes great change. Dr. Stammer says there'll be additional demands on government in particular, but he says the groundwork has already been laid.
The good thing about Australia, because of our superannuation arrangements and our retirement policy, we're coping a lot better than any other Western country.
There was a message too for business. It'll have to learn to be more flexible with part-time work and more willingness to employ older people. It's a lot to consider, but the change will be gradual.
The population is ageing, but it's ageing slowly, and we have got time to put in place sensible policies at the government level, at the business level, and for individuals themselves to adjust.
Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
While footy fans are over the moon about the night's new Eastern Grandstand, for the crew of the Westpac Rescue helicopter, it's just another obstacle to negotiate, a task made even more difficult at night.
We found that, unfortunately, at night it was making it a little difficult for us to find our base and see the lights at times, especially in occasions of very bad weather.
The solution is to place 2 powerful flashing lights on top of the stadium. Lemon Tree Passage company Avtronics has developed the beacons, solar-powered to avoid the need for wiring, green in colour to be different from other lights in the immediate area, and using a tiny but powerful light-emitting diode, all turned on by the approaching pilot.
The pilot can simply click his microphone 3 times, that puts out a signal. The light listens for that and then it activates immediately.
Several thousand of the locally manufactured lights have been sold to the US Air Force and are being used at remote landing sites in Kuwait, Iraq and Afghanistan. They're also being used in Central Australia, and locally there are plans to fit the beacons at coal mine helipads and also atop the broadcast towers at Mount Sugarloaf. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Darren Williams became an apprentice carpenter when he was 16 years old. Now, a relatively short 18 years later, he's one of the directors of BuildEv, a Newcastle-based development company that spread its wings across New South Wales and into Queensland and Victoria. He says his time on the tools is what gives him an advantage.
It's all right to do a $20 million, $30 million building, but when you can walk on site and understand what the guy doing the concreting or the guy putting the roof on is going through, I think it's a lot easier to manage the project.
The company was established 10 years ago by Darren and his working partner David Sharp, a qualified boilermaker. After some costly mistakes, plenty of hard work and long days, the pair is now dealing with projects worth as much as $90 million.
It's just commitment to, I suppose, your job, commitment to your career, commitment to going forward and being positive.
It's good to look back on successful projects. We provide outcomes for communities. Shopping centres that we've developed employ a number of people, provide goods and services to the community.
Kel Hinchin has come a long way from his days as an apprentice fitter machinist. He opened his own engineering business in Muswellbrook in 1994 and in the past 3 years has hired 64 people, his business now worth an estimated $12 million.
The workers themselves are the biggest asset to the business as well. Look after your people and the business will do well.
It's this mantra that's proved his success. Kel's struggling to keep up with mining contracts and looking to employ another 15 workers. Like most engineering firms in the region, the father of 4 offers very healthy financial rewards to his workers. Most of these men earn in excess of $100,000 a year.
Over a number of years, we've put a lot of hours in, a lot of hard work.
A dramatic illustration of the earning potential of tradespeople comes with the Australian Bureau of Statistics figures, which indicate a GP will be approximately 45 years of age before his or her cumulative earnings match that of a plumber who's been working for just 10 years. Tomorrow night, it's never too late to begin an apprenticeship.
Officially, Timothy Joel Chapman's cause of death remains from head injuries sustained when he was struck by an unidentified motor vehicle driven by an unknown person. The 14-year-old died on this isolated stretch of road at Mount Vincent, west of Newcastle, while waiting to take his sister and her boyfriend to a nearby campsite. In handing down his findings, Coroner John Abernathy made this plea from the bench for anyone who knows who was driving the vehicle that killed Timothy to come forward and finally resolve the matter. A call supported by Timothy's family and friends.
It'd have to be eating away at him, and now's probably a good time to get out and say something.
The coroner believes because of the location, there must be a likelihood the driver came from one of the residences near the scene or at least was visiting one of the residences on that night. He criticised the way police investigated the fatality in 1997, saying, "I can see no good reason why all residences near the crash scene were not canvassed and that all their vehicles were not examined for signs of impact damage." While the coroner agreed with the open finding returned by the initial inquest in 1998, Mr Abernathy added that that inquiry missed an opportunity to have police conduct more investigation work to find the wanted vehicle and its driver. The case could now see changes made to the way police investigate hit-run crashes. As a result of the latest Chapman inquest, Coroner John Abernathy has made one recommendation to the New South Wales Police Commissioner. He's asked that when drivers in hit-and-run or similar cases can't be found in a reasonable time, that the cases be handed to criminal investigators. Gary Blair, NBN News.